Today, we're going over the most epic last battles in human history. Number 6. Siege of Baghdad. The Mongol destruction of Baghdad in 1258 remains one of history's most devastating sieges. It was a clash between the unstoppable force of the Mongol Empire, led by Hulagu Khan, and the once mighty Abbasid Caliphate, now ruled by the weak and complacent al-Mustasim. What unfolded was not just the fall of a city, but the end of a golden age. Hulagu Khan arrived at the gates of Baghdad with an army of over 100,000 soldiers. His mission was to crush the caliphate as part of the Mongol expansion. Al-Mustasim, a man who lived in past glories, dismissed warnings of the Mongols' might, scoffing at their threats. What could go wrong? Apparently, everything. The battle began with cunning Mongol tactics. When the Abbasid soldiers rode out to meet a smaller Mongol force, they believed victory was just on the horizon. But it was a trap. The Mongols flooded the plains, drowning many of the Abbasid forces, while their famed horse archers picked off survivors. The Abbasid army was obliterated before they could even defend their city. As the Mongols encircled Baghdad, they constructed their own walls and trenches, trapping its inhabitants. For days, catapults rained stones and fire onto the city, tearing through its defenses. On January 29, 1258, the Mongols breached Baghdad's walls, unleashing an unimaginable wave of destruction. Soldiers stormed the city, slaughtering the garrison and civilians alike. Women were captured, libraries burned, the streets were piled with the dead. Some accounts claim the death toll reached 2 million. Al-Mustasim, reduced to a powerless figurehead, surrendered in vain. The Mongols, unwilling to spill noble blood on the earth, are said to have rolled him into a carpet and trampled him to death. His family and advisors shared his tragic fate too. In the ashes of Baghdad lay the remnants of a civilization that had once led the world in science, medicine, and art. The city's fall was a catastrophic blow to the Islamic world, a golden age extinguished by the relentless Mongol expansion. Yet, it stands as a haunting reminder of the consequences of underestimating one's enemies, as you'll learn from the next last stand as well. Number 5. Battle of Gaixia. The roots of modern-day China can be traced back to one epic last stand between two ambitious men. In December 202 BCE, the Battle of Gaixia changed the course of Chinese history, paving the way for the rise of the Han Dynasty. This pivotal conflict saw two rivals, Liu Bang, a former peasant turned bureaucrat, and Xiang Yu, a skilled warrior from Chu, clash in a struggle for supremacy after the fall of the Qin dynasty. Initially allies, the two leaders became bitter adversaries when Liu Bang, feeling betrayed and fearing assassination, launched a rebellion in 206 BCE. Rumor had it that Liu Bang wanted more say in how the kingdom was being ruled. Early battles went poorly for Liu Bang, forcing him to retreat with only a small group of loyal followers. However, his generals turned the tide with key victories, gradually building momentum for his cause. The decisive moment came at Gaixia, in present-day Anhui province. Liu Bang's forces, said to number 300,000, surrounded Xiang Yu's camp, where only 100,000 troops held their ground. Through coordinated attacks, Liu Bang's army breached their defenses, leaving Xiang Yu with no choice but to flee. Pursued by Liu Bang's cavalry, Xiang Yu was cornered near the Wuxiang River. As the story goes, Liu Bang had launched another fresh attack on his enemy with only 28 loyal men by his side. Yet this historical feat became another moment where sheer will outpower the number of soldiers. In a final act of defiance, he fought valiantly before choosing to take his own life, rather than face capture. Many sources suggest that Xiang was severely injured and wasn't in a position to fight. So, he took matters into his own hands. Xiang Yu's defeat marked the end of the Chu resistance. With his rival gone, Liu Bang unified China and declared himself Emperor Gaozu of the Han Dynasty. As ruler, he implemented reforms, embraced Confucian ideals, and laid the foundations for a dynasty that would influence Chinese civilization for centuries. Speaking of influence, the next last stand on our list was just as decisive. Number 4. Battle of Mount Tabor. Picture this. Alexander the Great, fresh off a remarkable victory over Persian King Darius, standing on the shores of Phoenicia, eyeing the island of Tyre. This wasn't just any city. Tyre was a fortress, a naval powerhouse, and a symbol of Persian dominance. For Alexander, leaving it unconquered wasn't an option. But Tyre's citizens weren't about to bow down without a fight. At first, Alexander tried diplomacy. He requested access to Tyre's temple of Heracles as a gesture of goodwill, but the Tyrians saw through it. They refused, and then took it further by killing Alexander's envoys and throwing their bodies into the sea. That was the last straw. Enraged, Alexander ordered the destruction of Old Tyre, the mainland settlement, and began preparing for an epic siege. But of course, things are easier said than done. Tyre wasn't easy to reach. It was an island city separated from the mainland by a 700-meter stretch of water. With limited ships, Alexander got creative. He instructed his men to build a massive causeway using rubble from Old Tyre. Progress was slow, and the Tyrians fought back fiercely, even setting fire to Macedonian siege towers with a burning ship packed with combustibles. But Alexander didn't give up. Instead, he widened the causeway and called in reinforcements, including over 200 ships from allied Phoenician cities, and even Cyprus. With naval dominance secured, Alexander unleashed a barrage of attacks from both land and sea. The Tyrians fought valiantly, launching surprise raids and even cutting anchor cables to disable Macedonian ships. But Alexander's relentless strategy finally paid off. His battering rams broke through Tyre's thick walls, and his forces stormed the city. The aftermath was brutal. Over 6,000 Tyrians were killed, 2,000 were crucified, and the remaining 30,000 were sold into slavery. The fall of Tyre secured his control over the Phoenician coast, paving the way for his march into Egypt and cementing his legacy as one of history's greatest military minds. Speaking of great military minds, the next epic last battle on our list deserves more attention. Number 3. Battle of Myand. The Battle of Myand, fought in July 1880 during the Second Anglo-Afghan War, was a devastating blow to British forces in Afghanistan. This clash, set in the harsh terrain of modern-day Afghanistan, became infamous for its crushing defeat and sore humiliation of an imperial power. To be fair, the odds were in the favor of Afghans. After all, their force of 25,000 fighters outnumbered 2,500 British and Indian soldiers. However, it was believed that the British troops were tactically and technologically stronger. But the British stood little chance as the Afghan army, fueled by local resistance and fierce determination, launched a relentless assault. Despite their valiant efforts, the British lines were overwhelmed. One standout in the chaos was the British Grenadiers' courageous last stand. As Afghan fighters closed in, these soldiers fought to the bitter end. Instead of retreating, they fought till the last soldier dropped on the battlefield. It wasn't just history books that remembered this battle. Fiction immortalized it too. In Arthur Conan Doyle's stories, Dr. John Watson, Sherlock Holmes's famous sidekick, is portrayed as a survivor of Myand. The loss at Myand was more than a military disaster. It was a symbol of the challenges faced by foreign powers in Afghanistan, a region famous for resisting invasions, just like the next battle on our list. Number 2. Battle of Mactan. Historically, indigenous populations have stood no chance against the colonial powers, but our history is full of anomalies. The Battle of Mactan in 1521 was a historic clash that put European ambition against unshakable native resistance. Ferdinand Magellan, the Portuguese explorer sailing for Spain, had one mission: to circumnavigate the globe and claim new lands. When he reached the Philippines, he was confident. His fleet of 5 ships and over 250 men seemed unstoppable. But on the island of Mactan, he met his match in Lapu-Lapu, a chieftain who wasn't about to let foreign invaders invade his sacred lands. Magellan tried diplomacy first, offering gifts and proposing trade, but Lapu-Lapu wasn't buying it. When Magellan demanded submission to the Spanish king, the chieftain flat out refused. That didn't sit well with the explorer, who decided to force the issue. Lapu-Lapu, seeing the threat, rallied his warriors for battle. At dawn, the fight erupted. Lapu-Lapu's warriors attacked with ferocity, using their knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the Europeans. Magellan, confident in his superior tactics, led 40 men ashore to crush the resistance. But the native fighters were relentless, armed with clever strategies and weapons crafted from local materials. The Europeans stood no chance. In a dramatic twist, Magellan challenged Lapu-Lapu to a one-on-one duel, hoping to end the battle quickly. Big mistake. Lapu-Lapu's skill and determination prevailed, and he struck the fatal blow, bringing Magellan's expedition to a crushing halt. The remaining Europeans, leaderless and outmatched, fled back to their ships, leaving Mactan in defeat. The victory at Mactan delayed the Spanish colonization of the Philippines by 44 years. Today, Lapu-Lapu is celebrated as the first national hero of the Philippines. Number 1. Battle of Talas. Lastly, the Battle of Talas in 751 AD was a defining moment in Chinese history, a fierce showdown between the Abbasid Caliphate and the Tang Dynasty that shifted the balance of power in Central Asia. At the time, the Abbasids were rising as a powerful force, replacing the Umayyad Caliphate. They were looking to expand their influence eastward, while the Tang Dynasty, led by General Xiang Yu, was solidifying its control in Central Asia. The sparks of conflict ignited when a local feud between the leaders of Tashkent and Fergana escalated, pulling both empires into a larger war. The two armies met on the plains of Talas. Ziyad ibn Salih, the Abbasid commander, brought 40,000 soldiers, an impressive mix of spearmen, archers, and cavalry. Xiang Yu's Tang forces numbered around 30,000, including spearmen, crossbowmen, and nomadic horsemen. For 4 long days, the battle raged on, with neither side able to break the stalemate. Spears clashed, cavalry charges met resistance, and the deadlock dragged on. But on the 5th day, the tide turned. Ziyad played his trump card, the Karluk Turks cavalry. According to Arab accounts, these horsemen had been hidden across the Talas River and launched a surprise attack on the Tang forces. Chinese records, however, tell a story of betrayal. The Karluks, initially allied with Gao, switched sides during the battle. The Arab account suggests that Karluks had defected to the Abbasids before the battle started. Regardless of the truth, their assault broke the Tang army's formation and sent them into a chaotic retreat. The Tang forces were crushed, and only a few managed to escape. General Gao survived but was disgraced, and later executed for corruption. For the Abbasids, the victory solidified their power in Central Asia, while the Tang Dynasty began to pull back from the region, marking the start of their decline. Beyond the battlefield, the consequences were massive. Captured Chinese artisans introduced papermaking to the Abbasids, a technology that spread across the Islamic world and into Europe, revolutionizing knowledge and communication. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment to tell us what you think about this video in the comments section.